Walk with me through the cellar door.
A storm is coming, Francis.
A portal to a more skeptical world.
Cellar Door Skeptics begins right now. Prepare for the revolution with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna.
The NFL has been engaged in constructive discussions with the NFL Players Association regarding the anthem and issues of equality and social justice that are of concern to many Americans. The statement continues to say, while those discussions continue, the NFL has agreed to delay implementing or enforcing any club work rules that could result in players being disciplined for their conduct during the performance of the national anthem. So, great. Now that's not news, right? That's been out since July, 19th or 20th. Towards the end of July, the NFL released that statement. They still have not to this day come to a conclusion. And here we were last weekend with the kickoff of preseason. Now, I'll be honest, I don't follow the NFL. I know Hannah is not a sports ball fan.
I am a baseball fan, but it's more of a personal experience and years and years and years and years of playing that I can enjoy it. But even then, I can't sit down for 3 hours because I'm a blue collar dude. I ain't got that kind of time.
Yeah. And so, but I thought it was interesting because, and maybe we focus too much on the orange Cheeto monster on this show, but he had to tweet about it this weekend because, of course, players, are resisting, the national anthem. And they're not resisting it as much as they're protesting it, I should say. So that was a misuse of words. But
well, they're not even protesting the national anthem. That's the whole thing. They're being completely misconstrued that this is some kind of anti-America, anti-patriotism thing. This is just people protesting during the national anthem.
Yes. And it's funny because here we are, the opening weekend, and what does Trump have to say? It's hilarious. He literally goes, he says this, I guess I'll just read it for you.
Might as well.
He says, be happy, be cool. A football game that fans are paying so much money to watch and enjoy is no place to protest. Most of that money goes to the players anyway. Find another way to protest. Stand proudly for your national anthem or be suspended without pay. Of course, that's a Twitter statement. Obviously, he wasn't standing in front of the, Oval Office or in front of a press conference.
He hasn't. I don't think he's done a press conference this year. I don't think he's done a conference this year on his own. I think it's only been Sarah Huckabee Sanders. I don't think he's done an actual answer questions from the reporters this year. But anyways, the whole thing about this is that. Do you know when they started doing the national anthem at sports games?
Do I know personally?
Yeah.
No. I'm guessing it's the 50s or 60s, right around the Red Scare time.
It was actually a little bit before that. They started playing it in 41-42. So it was around that World War II thing. And it became a standard while all of the players and soldiers were off during World War II. But like the whole concept of the national anthem in sports games has been completely perverted. There is a pay to play thing that they've been doing, using sports as a type of recruiting for the military. There are I think it was $100,000 to I think Cleveland. I think is one of the major cities that have been taking money from the Air National Guard for advertising, basically, to make the national anthem, make the military night, military this, military that, like all those kinds of things included into the national anthem and including into these sports things as essentially a recruiting tool. That's one of the reasons why the national anthem has become such an insane thing throughout sports. Like it's just like patriotism has been infused into the genes of sports, and it didn't always used to be like that. It used to be you play the sports games. That's all you did. And in the NFL, the players weren't even on the field until not too long ago. And so like this is kind of a side effect of overly patriotizing your sport. That's what happens. I mean, this is, people are going to protest. And I don't know. I just think that we could take it easy and lay back on the patriotism in sports just a little bit.
Yeah. And it's ridiculous. We have a sitting president who is so opinionated he can't stay off Twitter. And the problem is if you go back through his feed, in fairness, and you actually read some of the stuff when he first became president versus now, you can see the authoritarian side come out in his tweets now. The longer we are in this together, the longer we're seeing Trump basically state completely awful things. I mean, great. You're the leader of our United States, unfortunately, right?
Temporary. It is. I mean, that's the best thing I can say about the Trump presidency is it is ultimately temporary.
Exactly. But the problem here is that all of a sudden his Twitter platform has changed. And I'm not really all for banning Trump on Twitter, personally. I don't think that's going to solve anything. And I don't see it as a valid way to restrict his free speech to something that people want to hear, right? But if you go back and read some of the tweets, and then all of a sudden you're like, now you're going to tell them they can't get paid. Who do you get to make that decision? Are you telling? Are you just openly saying that American politics is that convoluted that the NFL owns the government or the government owns the NFL? I mean, is that what you're getting at? Because that's almost what it feels like.
It sounds like he's making sports a socialistic tendency of the United States government. I mean, if the government's going to be in charge of the means of production in a socialist society, wouldn't the government be in charge of how we get our entertainment? Man, this is kind of starting to sound like what all those Republicans don't like when the government starts to infringe on a free capitalist market economy. The government's cupping in and telling a private corporate, the whole idea that the NFL is private is kind of convoluted as well, because they take hundreds of millions of dollars in taxpayer subsidies to put their stadiums in certain cities on the promise that it'll bring economic growth to that area. But I digress. Either way, like when it comes down to it, it's like this is the government, because Trump is the government. This is the government affecting and basically trying to control the free market, something that the Republicans say, no, we should never affect the perfect machine, the engine of capitalism. Why would we ever want to do that? It's so perfect. We should never hurt it at all.
Exactly. And the funny thing is what have we seen in the NFL? We've seen, and I butcher his name. I'm just saying Colin. We've seen Colin. He hasn't been drafted. He didn't play a game last year.
Colin Kaepernick, yeah, no, he didn't get picked up from a single team. He's been blackballed from the NFL.
Yeah,
clear and simple. All of the owners got together, all of the white owners. I think there may be one African American or minority owner, I think, but overall, the NFL is without question uniformly white, male owned, and they all just got together into a nice Southern boy cabal and said, nope, we're not going to hire this guy.
Yeah. I mean, there was an article I was reading. I think they said 70% of the league is African American and 100% of the owners are white.
Or at least really, really close to it. Yeah, no, it's really clear if you can read between the lines. I mean, you got to be able to just think about something besides zeros and ones.
Yeah, and what will happen if the NFL continues down this path and they say, hey, we're not going to do anything. Which is where I'd rather than make a confirming statement saying, no, they can, go ahead and kneel. We don't care what the president says. That's what I would like to hear. But my guess is they're just going to take the easy out and just ignore this. They're not going to make a thing about it. They're just going to ignore the rule. And then, at the end of the season, they'll kind of get together and they'll go, okay, hold on a second. Maybe we changed our mind. And then it'll happen all over. And what's going to happen to the teams? What's going to happen if this happens? I mean, we look at a multi-billion-dollar industry here.
Oh, yeah.
What's going to happen?
Billions. Well, my first thought for the NFL itself is I do believe that the NFL will It's never going to reach the same size peak that it was in the past. They're already seeing a massive downturn and a reduction of the total players going out in the youth nowadays because of people are understanding what it does to your brain. So the microencephalopathy that we've talked about, chronic microencephalopathy, the whole idea of the excessive concussions and all the stuff that have been killing and making former NFL players lose their minds. I mean, literally lose their minds and kill themselves and go crazy. Like that has been brought to the forefront, and they're seeing a lower number of people interested in playing the sport itself. I'm actually seeing this in soccer as well with all the head. With heading soccer balls, it's a really hard impact on your brain. But either way, all these head impacts in sports is reducing the number of people who want to play these dangerous things because it affects you later on in life. And so they're seeing small reductions there. And then they've been seeing downturns and lowering overall for the NFL for a couple of years now, as far as I know. Sports like basketball, on the other hand, have been really, really inclusive as far as what they've been doing with their political messaging and allowing the players, meeting them in the middle. So the players stand for the national anthem. They have a dress code. They're not allowed to wear anything they want. They have to wear suits to and from the stadiums, and but they can't protest during the national anthem. But they're allowed to wear T-shirts during their warm-ups. And so one of the famous things at the Cleveland, it might have been in Cleveland. I'm not sure if it was Miami Heat or Cleveland with LeBron. They were wearing "I Can't Breathe" T-shirts after the murders of it wasn't Freddie Gray. Who was the guy who couldn't breathe that was killed in New York when he was selling cigarettes? Eric Garner, maybe.
Yeah.
No, I think he was the young kid, the 16-year-old shot. There's so many police murders that I can't even remember their names now. This is sad. Anyways, the NFL has basically taken an authoritarian stance where they will not let anything happen. You can't say anything. No political
It is
stances.
Eric Gardner. I know it has to be Eric Gardner. I'm pretty sure that it's Eric Gardner.
Well, if
I'm
it
going to
isn't,
Google it now. But,
yeah,
and it's sad that we
it.
don't remember this, right?
Well,
that shows our privilege right here.
Well, there's Freddie Gray, there's Eric. There's so many different names that it's just it's hard.
It is Eric Gardner.
It is. He's the one that was killed with a cigarette. Yeah. So, I mean, with all of that stuff, like "I Can't Breathe" was they were allowed to wear shirts at warm up, at a political protest to make that statement, and they weren't fined. They weren't but they talked with the owners. The owners were like, okay, this is what you want to say. This is how we'll all get along. But the NFL is just basically taking the old the plantation slave owner recipe, saying, no, you guys are our employees. You do exactly what we say. If you do anything else, we're going to fine you. We're going to punish you. You are our property. We tell you what to do. Like that business model doesn't have a future. And Trump, in his political party and his political wing, loved that kind of top-down authoritarian white male regime control. And so this isn't a surprise, but I think this future of this organization and everything, they don't have it. They can't keep it. Just like white evangelicals will not be the majority in the United States in 20 years. 30 years. Like they will cling to it as hard as they can, but they're going to be a minority. And I think the NFL and racism, they're a cornered animal screaming and yelling as much as they can. But I don't think this is going to be the mentality as time goes on.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think that we'll see a shift. I think we will see a shift in what we can do or what's going to happen, where it's going to be, who's going to do it. So I don't know. I guess. This is interesting to me because, I used to be a big NFL, fan, and it's really hard for me to participate. And it's kind of funny because at work, I don't make a big thing about it, but people will talk about, be like, yeah, I didn't watch it. And they're like, oh, you got to keep watching these games. It's like, no, in fairness, until, the NFL comes out and says, hey, we're going to stand up against racism. I kind of have a hard time wanting to care about anything that goes on. And, there's another guy, he's like, well, it's funny, I protested, the year before because they allowed it. They're not going to allow it this year. Well, guess what? I come in today, he's wearing a Lions shirt. He's like, oh, you watched that preseason game? He's like, yeah, I did. And it's like, did you? Nope. and it kind of came down to, I was like, maybe they'll come to a conclusion on this this national anthem policy pretty soon. And one one of us will be happy and one of us will be upset. And he's like, yeah, I know. You're just that liberal bastard that just can't seem to, you just don't respect the flag, do you? And it's like, no, that's not it. But you know what? I'm not here to discuss politics with you right now, Mr. Sir. I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm here to work.
Well, that's one of those ignorant things where it's just like it's not about the flag. But personally, I don't have a problem. You could light a flag on fire in my driveway. I would not care, because America, this nation, the people that make it up, is not beholden to any one symbol. You could come out with like this weird swirly tie-dyed thing and then say tomorrow that's the national flag, and I would be like, fine, that's the flag. I really don't have some kind of crazy traditional need for the symbols and all of that kind of stuff to be what makes this country great. Like the people that are so tied up on tradition and images and symbols and stuff. This is part of the reason why you and I have so much trouble with a lot of people that battle with, well, we should believe in these things because we've always believed in these things. So that's not an argument. Like the fact that the flag is just this piece of paper that we use to identify this country, or a piece of cloth that we use to identify this country, means nothing if the freedom to do and say what makes America doesn't exist. And then what's the point? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you can't burn a Russian flag in Russia. You know what I mean? Like that, you can burn an American flag in America. That is a political statement and a free speech thing. Like that's kind of where I am on this one. It's just like, you should be able to do these types of things, and the NFL should realize that it will become an endangered species if it doesn't start to evolve a little bit.
Yeah, and I'll be happy when the flag and the national anthem all become an endangered species and we no longer have to talk about it. Because
when the president stops yelling about it,
or when that will never happen. And it's kind of funny. This last week, Hannah, I ended up hanging out with a old friend of mine. We had him on the show a couple times.
Oh yeah, Chapman.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Him and I went out to Stella's for some drinks. We walked around Grand Rapids a little bit. Ended up at the Pyramid Scheme. And it's kind of funny because we got to both talk a little bit about our atheism, our journeys. We talked about our families, and then it's kind of funny. He lives in California. He's pretty bloody liberal. I mean, it was, it was kind of weird. Like, bro. I was like, yeah. He's like, yeah, I agree with you. I was like, oh, all right, you agree with me? He's like, yeah. He's like, you should move to California. It's really expensive, but it's a lot better out there. It's like, oh, yeah,
except for the fires and the earthquakes.
Yeah. Well, I asked him about the earthquakes. I was like, what about the earthquakes, man? I was like, my wife will not let us move out there because of the earthquake. And he's like, it took him like 5 years before he ever actually felt an earthquake.
Yeah.
He's like, they just happen. You just never felt them.
We just have PFAS and tornadoes here. You can get cancer and then get picked up and tossed about 100 yards here in Michigan. Those are the major dangers. That's one of the things when I was in college that the foreign students would always say is the thing they were most scared of about going to school in Michigan was that tornadoes would come and get them. And I always you guys aren't in Tornado Alley. You're not in Oklahoma. Why are you so scared of it? But just the fact that tornadoes exist was something that was like this major, why would we ever want to live here?
Yeah, exactly. And but I mean, he kind of left off the fire. I mean, we talked about the earthquakes. We didn't really talk about the fire now that you mentioned that, But, that's kind of a scary thing. But that was kind of the funny thing, because one of the big things that kind of came up, and this was weird, because part of the reason he didn't want me in the band anymore was because of my, pot usage and my drinking. And here we are sitting at Stella's drinking. It's Grand Rapids. Everything's decriminalized. I said, hey, I got my vaporizer. You want to partake? And then we smoked together. So that was just it was weird, and it was kind of refreshing at the same time. And that was kind of the thing. We started talking about different things, and that's what came out. Hey, well, I enjoy this type of indica and this type of sativa and blah 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 blah. And of course we talk about lots of other things too. But that's kind of what came out is like, yeah, you remember? And he's like, yeah, no. He's like, that's why it's kind of ironic. Here we are right now, and in fairness, he has more tattoos than I have, right? He's got more tattoos. He's definitely at least very similarly far left leaning as I am. And here we are walking down the streets of Grand Rapids, talking about these things and laughing at the past. We're just laughing about how we used to be.
You're saying there's hope for Ted Cruz? Is that what this is?
Maybe. Ted Cruz is a lot older than we are, so maybe. I would wager no, because money and politics drive his life. We're the opposite, man. We're the ones trying to shove politics out of the limelight and say, hey, none of y'all are doing it correctly. We need revolutionary change.
All I know is it's been fun watching Ted sweat. Old Teddy boy's been sweating pretty hard. Beto O'Rourke, he's been doing awesome. And I mean, he'd been like doing a full-on grassroots campaign in Texas. But also, he used to be a punk singer. So his music, I don't know if you checked it out at all. You should look it up. I recommend everyone check it out. Beto O'Rourke is you just do a quick Google search, it comes up pretty quickly, but like just a former punk guy, just liberal through and through, running around Texas, going to all of the minorities and all of the I guess frustrated middle of the road and moderates, and I mean he's really doing a great job. He was only down something like a less than 1% or 1% or 2%. I mean, in Texas against Ted Cruz, I mean, a nationwide known incumbent. So it's pretty exciting to see that. I don't know. There's something you could say for people changing and evolving a little bit. Your friend moving out to California and kind of seeing the error of his ways and definitely changing a little bit. It's a nice story. I mean, he was fun to have on a show. He was a great conversation. So I'm glad you guys had a nice little bro date. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Speaking of cannabis, I read an article yesterday. I did, and at first I was a little skeptical, right? Because
this wasn't like some kind of like angry political one. This is just like reading about.
Yeah, I've been spending more time on Twitter or Reddit lately. And it's kind of I've been trying to. If you notice, my Facebook posts are gone down, and probably the posts for the show have too, just because I haven't honestly been on Facebook that often. You know, what'll happen is I'll be at work and I'll hit the Facebook button, I'll scroll, and then I'll click it off. I'll be like, nope, do not waste your time. Stop. It's not worth your time. And then I go back to Reddit, and then so I've been reading more lately, which is good for me because it's especially with everything at work. This is helping entertain my mind, you know, at work and off work. And it was kind of funny because this article came up, you know, in the science, Reddit thread. And I was kind of like, this is BS. Because every time I hear medical marijuana, I think, yep, they really just want to smoke it. Yes, there could be properties.
It can cure lupus now? Is that what they're saying?
No, it's not what they're saying, but I get your point. You know, I mean, that's what you feel like, right? It's like, stop with this. Let them medically research this first, and then let's talk about it. But there was a medical school called UMass. And again, when I hear UMass, the first thing I think of is this like a Prager University thing? Like, is this going to be one of those crazy, like, leftist woo-woo schools? And I looked it up. They're
University of Massachusetts is a real...
You're right. I couldn't believe it. I honestly didn't believe it. I actually even took a link where in the U.S. News and World Report rankings of different graduate schools, they ranked in the top 10% nationwide. They ranked 14 legit, among medical schools and 33 on osteopediatric medicine, right? So that's pretty good. So I then went back and reread the article.
So this is what, like a graduate student or like a professor doing some research or what?
Yeah, so her name is Beth McCormick. She has a PhD. And she has been doing research and working on treatments for gut disorders, mainly IBD. But they also are talking about Crohn's disease as well, which it hits a little bit closer to home because my sister shows symptoms of Crohn's disease. She's gone to be tested for Crohn's disease. And in fairness, I have not as accelerated of issues as she has, but I do have similar issues that I feel could be that borderline, right? And so I'm just scared of the doctor. I hate paying money to the doctor. So I'm waiting to see her results first and then to see if I need to get my scope done. Because the last thing I want to do is not eat or drink anything and have somebody shove something on my ass, you know?
Yeah, well, like you could like, is it in our family? Is it a little bit genetic? Crap, it is. I should probably go get it looked at. So tell the doctor to put on their mining helmet and go digging for gold.
Yeah, exactly. So this article talks about what they call endocannabinoids and how they can help control and prevent intestinal inflammation in mice. So this is not something they're doing in humans, right? Specifically, but they have, asked humans to submit some of their information, what's happened with it. And what they're talking about is they're hoping their research will find that this leads to development of drugs and treatment for gut disorders that affect millions of people around the world. And this will also help cause the body's immune defense to not mistakenly attack the internal intestine, which is what is typically happening in both of these different diseases. And so she says this, she says there's a lot of anecdotal evidence about the benefits of medical marijuana. And I agree with her. But she says there isn't a lot of science to back it up. So she is actually the vice chair and professor of microbiology and physiology systems and director of UMass Center for Microbiome Research. She says, for the first time, we have an understanding of how the molecules involved in the process and how endocannabinoids and cannabinoids can control inflammation. This gives clinical researchers a new drug target to explore to treat patients who suffer from inflammatory bowel disease, IBD, and perhaps other diseases as well.
That's awesome. I mean, this is another example of basically a chemical compound, a synthetic compound, all of the different ways that they've been able to create cannabinoids and synthetic cannabinoids. They've seen that this routinely doesn't have negative side effects, but it has all kinds of interesting medical effects. But we have these problems between the national and the state level governments and the university research programs where they can't get enough marijuana, they can't get enough material to test, they can't really do the research, but they won't legalize because they say there's no research. It's kind of a catch-22 that they're having here. So you can't get these medicines properly researched for the FDA to give drug approval to help people who have legitimate concerns, and maybe this medicine could really help them, because they can't get okays to just get tons of material to test these drugs. And so relaxing the Schedule 1 drug listing for marijuana to the point where it would be much easier for states and regulators to get this particular compound and then actually test it. So Michigan is actually opening two testing labs so that they're able to completely test and rate and level a lot of these medicines, because it's legal as medicine in Michigan, but they need some kind of organizing and regulating office. And so this is great news for us, but this is where this could further go on. It's like they've seen that this can potentially be good for microbiome and bowel issues. But there's still going to be all kinds of roadblocks currently to test it. But in the future, if they could reduce it and relax it, we would actually be able to do a lot more testing for other things too, potentially. Because all the anecdotal evidence she's mentioning, we need to be able to do real research, and that takes money, and it takes the ability to get it to actually do the testing.
Exactly, and that's the exciting part here, folks. It's exciting that we're seeing this because, again, a lot of people want to claim marijuana as medicine, right? It's funny because doing research on this article, it essentially kind of says, hey, not all marijuana has endocannabinoids, however you say that, inside of it, right? Not all of them have that. Yeah, not every strain has this, right? So it's not like you can just go to your dispensary, buy joints, and you're always going to get this to help fix it.
Yeah, just take a random weirdo joint from the alleyway of some brickweed, and that's going to totally cure any kind of intestinal problem you have. Yeah,
exactly.
Sounds absurd.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing is there, as this becomes more public and as we are allowed to test this, we're going to be able to isolate these different things. Yes, maybe it'll allow it to create a super strain where you can smoke a bowl and it's 86% THC.
Good
and you're
Lord,
so high you can't walk for a whole day, right? Whatever. But on the opposite side, it's going to find where this stuff can be actually used, how it can be used to benefit others, and it can help replace different drugs that we have. And be maybe, I don't want to say more natural, right? Because I don't believe it's a more natural thing we need to go for, but it can replace some of these extremely detrimental drugs that have high levels of side effects. You know, and I don't want to get into opioids. I mean, that's a whole different.
I was just gonna go there. Like for IBD and stuff like that, like that's pain, man. People are in pain. Yeah. And so, like, they can get addicted to it. Like, the doctor could be like, just take a couple of these. And they'd be like, well, I need a couple more. I need a couple more. I need a couple more. Next thing you know, they're moving up to something stronger. Like,
exactly.
My mom's, with her pain and all of her accidental stuff, like, I've been trying to get them to start taking CBD oil. Did you give that a try to see if that could help with some chronic pain? I don't know. There's all kinds of stuff, but they're scared. They're scared to be on a list with the federal government, with Jeff Sessions running around saying that off with his head to anyone who gets caught with this stuff. Like, I mean, it's scary. It really is. I hope in the future it gets a little bit better, but I mean, I would love to see this stuff become way more democratized and allow people to really find some awesome, awesome science.
Exactly. And I'm in the same boat you are, you know, like, I mean, let's decriminalize it. Let's stop making people go to jail for this. And again, now we're going to go down to a whole nother tangent that could take the next hour to discuss. And I don't want to do that tonight. You know, we've had those rants before, and I'm saving those for another day, especially when we have legalization for Michigan on the ballot in November. Woo! So yeah,
I'm so voting for that. That's going to be so cool. Now, is there just one proposition, or is there multiples again?
Nope, there's just one this time.
That's good.
And it is not the my most favorite, but it is definitely a lot more liberal of a policy that does not favor corporations in the same way. So, you know, last, what was it, 2 years ago? Was it 2 years ago or 4 years ago? I can't remember anymore.
2 years ago. It was on the ballot initiative for 2016.
Yeah. And they had all
the multiples.
Yes, they had all these other ones, and it was this big fight, blah, 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 blah. You know, and so now we're down to one. We're going back to
it's like Highlander.
Yeah,
the only one.
We're the only one.
Oh, what? Well, how did the TV show start? I don't remember what the band name was. Like, here we are. Like, what? Oh man, the Duncan MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod. That was one of the best sci-fi shows on television when I was younger. Like, I wonder if anybody would even remember that now that we're a little bit older. That show was so great.
I'm sure they do. People have to. I mean, we think about it, dude. I watched that, weirdly enough, randomly at random times. Like, it was not a staple in my house, but it was like one of those things you have to catch late at night. And you're like, hey, holy crap, Highlander's on.
Oh, I know. Oh,
and
the movie.
Yeah,
with Christopher Lambert.
Yes, and it's Queen.
And Sean Connery.
It's either Queen or the guy from Queen, whatever the heck that dude's name is.
Freddie Mercury.
Yes, it's one of the. It's either the band or it's just him that did the theme song. I'm pretty sure that's who it was.
Oh man, I'm gonna Google the verb of the noun of we were talking about this beforehand, just whether or not because like there's Siri and Alexa, but when you Google, it's like, let's Google something, as in it's the verb. But then when you want to do something on your phone, you're like, hey Google, when you're making it a noun. So it's like, which is it? But okay, I'm gonna look that up right now and see what that theme song was.
It is Queen. It is Freddie Mercury.
You already looked it up?
I did. I just while you were saying you're gonna Google it, I typed it in. It is. It's weird.
What song is it?
Prince of the Universe.
That's awesome, and that's amazing. The TV show was really good. Like, it was a really well done rendition of the movies. Because let's face it, I can't remember who the comedian was that talked about it, but they always made fun of it. The fact that like the whole movie, the whole Highlander movie was a Scotsman who basically becomes an immortal, and he has to go cut people's heads off. And like, so what did they do? They hired Sean Connery not to be the immortal Scotsman, but to be a Spaniard who taught the Scotsman swordplay. But he spoke as a Spaniard with the Scottish Sean Connery accent. So like the whole concept of, I guess thoroughness in casting was kind of tossed aside in that movie. But I mean, Sean Connery was amazing in that, and Christopher Lambert was typecast forever after he did those movies.
Exactly. I don't know.
I love my nerd out. I really love Highlander.
And now I kind of want to go like introduce my kids to that, because it's kind of funny.
there's some nudity in that one, so you got to watch out for that one.
That's
I
okay. You
remember
just fast forward a little bit.
Well, that was a big moment for me.
Oh,
Like the Highlander movies, I was like, I don't know, I think I was probably like 12 or 14. I was like, oh, this is amazing. This is a great movie. I'm loving this forever.
So do you only like it because of the nudity? Like,
No,
is that why you like this?
Well, I watched it when I was younger and I thought it was amazing because there was nudity. And then watching it later on when I was like 16, 17, 18, and I was like, okay, this is a good movie. Like this was like the Highlander movies was this. The first one was essentially just like this raw medieval modern twist to it, but the second one was this crazy cyberpunk thing where they blew up nuclear weapons to cover the earth in a cloud to stop the harmful rays from the sun from devouring the earth's atmosphere. Like there was no sun anymore. Like the earth was in perpetual darkness. Like total cyberpunk. Like we're talking Blade Runner territory. So like awesome stuff. And I don't know, I really enjoy that blending, that mix when you get into the medieval and modern and then cyberpunk stuff all mixed together. I don't know, I just thought it was awesome. Like people fighting in the future with swords. It's just a sweet mix.
Yeah. And it's weird, going back, right, and listening to that. It's like, that's like total 80s music right there. Like, that's just like the epitome of things I did not like about the 80s. Like, I don't like Queen. I'll just say it. There you go. Hey, don't send hate mail to me. Send it to Hannah. But I don't like Queen at all. My wife can't understand why I don't like Queen. She's like, seriously, you don't like Queen? No, I hate Queen. I can't stand it. If it comes on, I turn it. No interest in.
Like the Bohemian Rhapsody sing-along group thing, like the Wayne's World stuff, I enjoy, and a couple of like their bigger songs. But I don't own any of their music, and I never go out of my way to listen to it. The only Queen songs I know are the ones they play on the radio. My father and my sister had a real big Queen bonding experience between the two of them where they listened to a ton of his stuff. Like I respect Freddie Mercury's chops completely and totally. I'm just not a huge fan of him. But like it's the same thing as like there are people that sing in country music that are like amazing singers. I think they sound like they're singing through their noses because of the nasal qualities of a lot of their vocals, but they're amazing singers. I just think they're bad. So like, that personal taste thing, it's the same thing with Queen. Like I don't really like the falsettos in rock. I never have. Like if you can bring Boston into a room and say these guys are amazing and I'll just leave. More Than a Feeling makes me want to punch faces.
Yeah.
I don't really care. I don't care if people get angry at me for that. Every time I hear More Than a Feeling, I want to go slam my head in a toilet seat. Like I just can't get into it. I don't know. Freddie Mercury, he's kind of in between. Like great rock, awesome blasting music here and there, and then a couple of cool songs, but just Freddie on his own, not so much.
Yeah. Speaking of music, last week I also saw a legendary concert.
Was it good?
It was pretty amazing.
I've seen them a couple times. Are they still rocking hard?
Oh, yes, they are. So okay. I went to see Slayer's Going Away concert, right? I guess we'll tangent a little bit. I'll tell you a story. So
the gray in the beard freaks me out. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I have gray in my beard too, though, and I'm only 35.
But they have a ton. And they're metal guys. Like I'm used to just like jet black.
That's fair. But when you're that old, why would you?
Well, no, you're not gonna dye your beard. I'm just saying, like my favorite bands and the bands I listen to are now like silverback gorillas with like the flecks of gray on the sides. Like it's like, oh man, I don't know. It's like when you see your favorite singer and you see him like 10 years later and you're like, dude, that guy looks old, and it's just because he's been living the hard rock life. But it could be that he's actually old now and we're old too.
Yeah, kind of. I think that's I think that's fair. I think that's a fair accusation. Anyway, we went to see them. We got $50 tickets, had amazing seats. If you ever go back to Van Andel, the best spot to sit is like 201 or 202, right in the middle, right at the front. I mean, like it was, again, they're really small on the screen, and stuff like that, but it was pretty awesome, and so Testament played. I forgot how much I love Testament. I literally went out and got a couple of their albums. I was like, oh, yep, I like this. Like they're the better Metallica. Like they're
I've always said this, that Testament should be in with the big four. Like I would personally trade Testament for Megadeth.
ooh, all right. That's fair.
Dave Mustaine makes me angry. He just always has. I just don't like particularly his style. And so like I would trade Testament because I think they're more of like a seed band for black metal and for hard metal. And so like I can see them as like a natural evolution for a lot of those bands. But like I mean Megadeth kind of went into like, you know, popular metal is the best way I can describe it. Like he was like it's almost like or like a Rob Zombie version of metal. So like he was like more the show than it was his tunes. But either way, so Testament was awesome. Was it just Slayer and Testament?
Oh no, they had Slayer, they had Testament, and they had Lamb of God. And you know, I'll be honest, I don't think Lamb of God is my favorite.
Lamb was there?
Yeah.
I didn't know they were.
Oh yeah. Man, and they put on a hell of a set, man. It was pretty good.
Lamb's really good.
Yeah.
I've always liked Randy. His newer stuff, like he's been experimenting with some more vocal stuff. I don't know. Sacrament was the best. I don't think there will ever be a better album than Sacrament. But I mean, with Walk With Me in Hell and Lay to Rest, those songs are just brain droppers. But yeah, no, Lamb is awesome.
Exactly, and so they were there. Anthrax was there. That was weird. I've only seen Anthrax one other time, so it's like listening to an aggressive Freddie Mercury. I love the music, but couldn't stand the vocals. Yeah. You know,
they've had a bunch of different singers over the years. Like they finally got back with their original singer, but I don't remember the guy's name because Anthrax has always been like, oh, they're part of the big. So like the big four was Metallica, Megadeth, Anthrax, and Slayer, and I've always leaned more towards Slayer. And like I said, I would trade out Megadeth for Testament, but Anthrax on the other side always like had like a more metal hinge to them with their music, but like their vocals went into the falsettos again. So it was like if Freddie Mercury was angry and he was in a punk band, or like a thrash band. Like the music qualities of Anthrax is better than punk, but like its speed and its rhythm section is like a punk section. I don't know. Were they the openers? They should have been with that lineup.
Who?
Anthrax.
No.
Who opened?
Napalm Death.
Oh God, there you go.
That was amazing.
Yeah, that'll start a show. Those guys are hard. I don't know. We might be leaving a lot of our fans as far as the heaviness of the metal, but Napalm Death definitely worth a YouTube, and make sure parents and grandparents and people easily offended are nearby.
Yep. And the best in here, this is explicit. I'm going to say it. They ended their set with an amazing song. I've seen the album Napalm Death a couple of times. I've never heard them to play this song. They played Nazi Punk's "Fuck Off," and they screamed it, and they danced, and it's just like, holy shit, this is amazing. Like, I'm not a big Dead Kennedys fan, you know. Honestly, like they're okay. They're just not my favorite. But when Napalm Death covers that song, I'm like, I love that song. That's my favorite cover of a Dead Kennedys song ever.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a weird affinity with punk, and the Dead Kennedys definitely hit me in a real warm spot. I lean a bit more towards the Irish punk and some of the northern Great British punk, but still the Dead Kennedys, man, they love to rip on the Nazis. I'm just gonna say it, but does Napalm Death have a video of that song online at all?
Yeah, I think they do. I'm pretty sure they do.
We should add that to the description links. Someone maybe click on it and just be like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, I'll find one. Hold on a second. I'll find one. Yep, they do actually.
Awesome.
I think it's an official. I don't know if it's official or not, but
who cares?
It's definitely got them playing it. I don't know. I'll be honest. I would have rather seen Napalm Death have a longer set. You know, to me, it would have been better to be Anthrax, Lamb of God, either Napalm Death, then Testament, or Testament, then Napalm Death, and then Slayer.
Yes, I would agree with the switching around on that one. Anthrax is definitely the opener for me on that one. And then, well, personally, with me, Lamb of God would be after Napalm Death because I like Lamb of God more than Napalm. But yeah, dude, that's just a solid lineup from front to back. That must have been a really good show.
It was. And the hardest thing is in the past, Slayer has been accused of being associated with Nazis, right? I mean, it's happened.
Yeah, Devil Driver had the same problem. I was at a show and the lead singer Dez, I know you know who Dez is, but for anybody listening that doesn't know Dez Fafara, he stopped the show. It's in one of the DVDs for, I believe, Beast was the album, and there was a special edition that came with the DVD. He stopped a major show, an arena show. And he told the guy in the front, I will stop playing if you do another Nazi salute one more time. I will stop this show. Like, totally calling out. Because a lot of times, like, bands like Devil Driver and what's Jamie Joss's band? Oh, I can't think of it right now.
I don't know.
Hatebreed.
There you
Hatebreed is called out a lot. Like, a lot of their music is, like, really, pro take control of your life, pro positivity, like just harsh. And like a lot of times that stuff gets attributed and picked up by white supremacists saying like, take back your country, take back what you think is yours. And it's really, the message is completely perverted, but it's sad because, like these bands have openly said like, no, we don't like that stuff, but they do get associated. I've seen multiple times, mostly at Devil Driver and Hatebreed shows, I've seen Nazi and swastikas on jackets. Like I've seen the SS stuff and Nazi paraphernalia and the swastikas on jackets. And those are the only bands that I've ever seen that with besides Slayer. Slayer, you get the bald guys out there that are just looking to murder people in the pit. So why are you even at the show? You're not there to listen to music. You're just here to fight and punch a black guy. Like, go home.
Yeah. And that's the problem is because of the controversy and now in this day and age, I feel bad. Like, I listen to it and I think, in fairness, they have aggressively denied this.
Yeah.
But, the late Jeff Hamlin, there's a photo of that dude with his hand raised. Now, is he giving the Nazi salute? I don't know. I mean, it kind of looks like it. And it's really, the problem I have is because they're obsessed with Nazi memorabilia. Why would you do that? It's it's really hard for me because that was a band I grew up on. That was like my rebellious band, right? That was the one band that, my parents, didn't just absolutely hate, didn't even understand who they were, what was happening. Like, it was confusing to them. And so Slayer had always been, one of my childhood.
Well, they were one of the drivers of the Satanic Panic back in the 80s, early 90s. I mean, I know they were one of the bands that were driving the Satanic Panic. We all used to hear different stories, and obviously on the Seth at the with his show. I always heard about the people that were involved in the church. They always they always talked about the Satanic Panic as a big thing. I was just listening to hard rock when I was that age. I didn't really experience it. I was a little bit too young for it, but like I know Slayer was a big one because they use a lot of dark and like the Iron Maiden style images where you had like skulls, crossbones, and like weirdly enough, like Slayer would go even further and like upside down crucifixes and all kinds of crazy stuff in their t-shirts and stuff.
Exactly, and that's. I don't know. That's the thing. And I guess if others have an opinion, I would like to know. Because, again, I do have a harder time listening and wearing some of the stuff. They've not aggressive. It's kind of like Al from Ministry. He's come out aggressively, against the president. He's been out against the president many a times.
Uncle Al has always been like that. The dude is, like, his work has always been really great when it comes to politics. He's just awesome. Another thing that, like, with Hatebreed, a friend of mine, like, I always thought Hatebreed was like this really positive band. Like, when I listen to their music, it's like, now is the time to rise up and stuff like that. And I always thought, like, man, this is like, great music getting ready for, a baseball game. Is when I was still playing in college. And like, like, get you pumped up. And that friend of mine was like, man, I have a hard time listening to this because of all the, the white supremacist stuff that has been attributed to it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And I went down the rabbit hole and I looked at the internet and I looked at all these people who are, I think, appropriating really good music and using it for horrible things. And the Slayer thing is the same way. It's like, I mean, we know enough about the guys in the band that, you're like, more than likely, this isn't like some kind of pro thing. I mean, you can't be 100% certain because you can never know without knowing the people 100%. But you can be pretty sure. Like, I've listened to enough Hatebreed and enough Devil Driver and seen enough of what the band has said to say, yeah, they're not supporting this. It would be unfortunate if they do, but I would love to see them, like, like Napalm Death did, just completely putting up a middle finger directly at the Nazis, like leaving no question. That's kind of what needs to happen. And I don't see why that is so hard to do. I mean, money's money. It still freaks me out a little bit that these bands won't completely come out without a question and just denounce it. Like Trump does, oh, there's good people on both sides. No, there isn't. We're not going to have this conversation. I'm going to shut this down completely on one side. You guys all suck. Like, I would love to see a band like that do that. I don't know if they will, but we'll see.
In fairness, Slayer has done that. I mean, they have come out and, essentially literally said, no way in hell, we're not that, do you understand our song is a documentary? Maybe it was in bad taste. That's fine. But it was a documentary, and they have a couple of different songs too. That kind of you go, I don't know. And Jeff Hanlon, before he died, he was one of the, he was the one that was most obsessed about this.
Yeah.
But in fairness, he loved the Dead Kennedys. He loved Black Flag. He was into a lot of these different, doomcore type bands that were essentially anti-government and anti-authoritative.
I don't know how you could be a Black Flag fan and like any kind of anti-Semitism or anything. I mean, those guys were so like Henry Rollins was no joke. Like, just fight the system, but like racism and all that kind of stuff, like they just punch you in your face if you're doing that. Like, without question. Like, those guys were so down to earth and violent at the same time. It's insane.
Yeah. And that's kind of, there was an NPR article that I posted in there that kind of talked a little bit about this, right? I mean, they talk about how metal works with darkness. It's rooting for something. It's looking to make sense of the ugly human existence that we are. And I don't hear Slayer screaming that they are white supremacists, that they only want white people to like their music, that they love Trump and everybody should just disappear, blah, blah, blah. You don't hear that in their lyrics. But again, I mean, I am a white privileged male, so who grew up loving Slayer. So sometimes things are a little harder, right?
Yeah. So if anybody has like a thought where there's like, we're barking up, the wrong tree on this one, like they have something where like, no, you guys don't understand. Slayer really is, or Devil Driver really is, or Hatebreed really is in some way, some form, really racist. Let us know. Just give us your evidence and we'll take it out, look at it. We'll debunk it if we can. If we can't, we'll have to change our opinions. But give us your best shots.
Exactly. Well, Hannah, as we wrap tonight up, there's one more article I thought we should talk about. And
oh boy.
And it's kind of, again, it's one of those that goes back to, I have some extra time on my hands at work right now.
I got too much time on my hands. No. Dude, I'm bringing back 1986 all over this.
Ugh. Yuck. Yuck. But, so I actually could take my lunches now. And not all the time do I have anything to do during lunch. So I've been going to lunch and reading a little bit more, trying to envelop myself in articles that are not specifically related to Trump.
That's hard.
And I tried very hard with this one. And again, this one came from, this actually came from an economics Reddit thread, weirdly enough. Don't know how it got there, but it's about science. And essentially, this article is from sciencenews.org. And they talk about a new computer program that can generate eerily realistic fake videos.
So either way, you should include that, and we can talk about it.
Exactly, and that's, you're right, Hannah. That's these videos could create a fake news outlet that takes Snopes almost out of the equation, right?
Well, it goes viral.
How are we going to debunk some of these things? So let's back up a little bit. I think we went a little too far. The computer program that has come out is basically taking videos and mirroring the movements and expressions of someone in a different video. So essentially, they have a new computer program can manipulate video so that the subject mirrors the movements of someone else in another video. They have, in this case, Putin are altered to match those of President Obama. And that's amazing, right? I mean, like, this is pretty cool technology in terms of what you can do. Because
it's amazing. It's amazing real-time processing. This is freaky at the speed that it's able to do it. Because one of the big problems that we run into with CPUs and processing, a lot of stuff is done in post-processing. So like you record something, you make something, you got it created, and then you have to send it through some kind of special filter thing to get what your outcome is that you want. So like you talk, you have to plug it into the algorithm, and then it spits out Obama flipping off, Mother Teresa, or whatever ridiculous thing you want to say. But now with the increases in computation, we're able to do these things in real time. I mean, like all of these Snapchat filters and all that kind of stuff, like you can change what you're seeing. You can change what visual reality is. And we know how dependent humans are. Like if you see something, it's pretty much taken as reality for a lot of people. I mean, very low skepticism. If I saw a video and was just an, let's say, undereducated person who was just seeing President Obama say "stay woke, bitches," I would. I don't know if I'd be able to fight that.
Exactly, and that's kind of that before this whole video thing came about, and before the show started, we were talking about the audio side of this, which I didn't actually know existed. And it's funny, you sent me this video from the Jordan
Peele.
Yeah, Jordan Peele, where he changes what Obama says through the voice thing. Now imagine if you can get the video to record. And it's essentially what this is doing. If you could mirror these two technologies together, I mean, think about it. Annan hides behind masks. You would no longer need a mask. You could literally create videos with yourself and have them project something else in real time. And they talk about how this works, right? The article talks about how the algorithms start scanning two videos frame by frame, tracking 66 different facial landmarks to map people's expressions, head tilt, lines of sight. It's crazy.
It's the same kind of stuff they use in video game mapping. So like I don't know how familiar we are with like 3D animation, but like what you can do is you can basically with a topographical map, like the distance between lines, you can tell how deep something is or how high it's raised just on like a standard map. Well, they do the same thing with images. So like eyes are sunking in, and so like the way the lines are created is differently. So they can take a picture and they create a bunch of different lines that show the computer raised and lowered surfaces, and then essentially you can pick where all the points are on your face that are the corners of your mouth, the tops of that little curved part right underneath your nose, your septum that a lot of people have, and like so like all those pinpoints, all the very easily identifiable points on your face can be marked onto a computer, and then the same exact points can be marked onto another face. And so they can transfer all of the movements on your face for those points onto the other one. So that makes the lip movements, that makes everything look very reliable, because I can read lips. I can literally turn the audio off and watch that video, and I can still see exactly what President Obama is saying, because it's real. It's not like, people animating and making it look right. Like in a hand animated movie, I can tell that it's hand animated. I can't read the lips. But in a real video where they dub over something or whatever, I can tell what the lips are doing. And this is going even way beyond that. Like this is perfect lip reading. And in all reality, this is a dangerous technology, and in the eyes of propaganda and a computer illiterate group of people. I mean, there's still a large group of people in this country who don't really understand the strength of technology and digital manipulation. I mean, they really don't. Otherwise, how can you fall for a lot of the media propaganda that we see nowadays? So, like, it scares me, man. It really does scare me.
Exactly. And that's in our article, again, I did a little bit of research. They're giving a presentation this week on this. And I actually posted from Stanford their actual research paper, and we're not going to get into the details of it, right? There's so much that goes into this, but the interesting thing, and I would encourage everybody to go read this, because if you look at it, they talk about what their goal is, how they want to replicate these different things. They aren't talking about how they want to use this or create this for media propaganda. They're talking about this for videos, video games, movies, those type of things. I mean, think about it this way. If you could, and even this would be funny, if you could animate Trump, take what he says and give different facial features, you could create a whole new crazy comedy that you could sell for millions of dollars, right? I think
you could make a movie and put it on Hollywood or something, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know, like maybe I would watch that. Like a Mystery Science 3000 or something, but like Trump saying ridiculous things.
But if you go back to what they're trying to do with this, it's for the film industry. This is not meant for, somebody to take and try and get Obama to say, fuck Hillary Clinton or something like that. That's not what that's there for. And the problem is that if this is going to be released, somebody should be, in my opinion, working on how can we debunk these things? How can we take these things? What can we do to figure out the algorithms that are doing this? Because there has to be a coding mask that can be, that can be discovered. And I think that now that this is big public news, I mean, and this isn't even that new. It's just kind of resurfacing because they're giving a talk on it this week. But somebody needs to delve into this. This has to be delved into. Somebody has to look into how are we going to prevent alternative news media outlets from using this.
Well, it doesn't even have to be alternative. Donald Trump Jr. shared a fake poll this week that said Donald Trump, his father, had higher publicity ratings than Obama did at the same point. There's a ton of things that have been happening as far as reliability and media shares and stuff like that when it comes to this. And what we're talking about here is ethics and hindsight. So like they've created this technology with the expectation to be able to, let's say Andy Serkis, Gollum, he's going to be using this technology to create a more perfect rendition of some character that he wants to do absolutely perfect facially, but let's say it's an existing person, so he has to learn all of their mannerisms. But when he acts it out, they can use this program to let's say they did it for the Churchill movie, so it wouldn't have been Gary Oldman and all kinds of crazy makeup. It would have been actual Churchill animation, and they would have been able to use Gary Oldman to do that animation. So it wouldn't have been him in prosthetics. It would have been the CG Gary Oldman Churchill thing. Like, let's say that's their goal for this technology. But like with things like MySpace and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all of these types of things, like all of the unintended consequences that we've had from this tech. One of the things that I've heard from a lot of people that are critics of modern tech is that most of these companies try to be the first person to create something, and once they've created some new thing, they just put it out there and they say, we made this is this new thing, we're the first to do this, give us your billions of dollars to buy our company. But what we're seeing now is all of the side effects of not thinking about ethics in those situations. So like Facebook never thought ethically about the fact that if they were ever in charge of over 2 billion people, this is roughly 2 billion users of Facebook on Earth, if they were in charge of what 2 billion people on Earth saw, that they could be used and monetized and manipulated to become this political and vote manipulating machine, Well, these types of things are unintended side effects of that. And the same exact thing can happen with this kind of attack, where you could take someone's face who's a political person and make a crazy propaganda video. So, like, this is really clear. Like, a face, straight up interview of, someone up close. What if this was President Obama, or even more so in the news today is all this stuff about Donald Trump and Omarosa, where Trump's saying the N-word. What if someone used this technology to do like a sort of kind of off to the side video of Donald Trump spouting the N-word?
Exactly.
That would be like a confirmation for every liberal out there. This guy is the biggest piece of garbage ever. Like, I would be sick if it wasn't real. If it was real and I can confirm it, then I'm fine with calling him out on it. But if it's fake and I get caught up in it, that makes me just as bad.
Exactly. Oh, I don't know, Hannah. It's scary. It's scary where we're headed. Think about, we have the election coming up. So, I don't know. I don't know. I can tell you this, folks. Cellar Door Skeptics will never use this technology, not because we're not rich enough to use it, but we find it morally reprehensible.
Repugnant.
Word of the day, repugnant, folks. Thank you all for joining us on another Cellar Door Skeptics. We'll be back next week with another amazing episode right here for your listening ears. Thank you, everyone, and have an amazing night.
You've been listening to a presentation of Cellar Door Skeptics. Check us out on Spreaker. CellarDoorSkeptics.com.